State College has a minor league baseball team called the Spikes, and their mascot is named Ike. The Spikes weren't very good this year. In fact, they had one of the worst records ever for a minor league team. As the Spikes season was ending, Ike, the hurricane, not the mascot, was doing some very unusual things as well. Now, the movement of Atlantic tropical systems is largely controlled by a belt of high pressure that stretches across the subtropical ocean. Tropical storms and hurricanes get steered clockwise around its fringes until they find a weakness to escape the tropics. And much of the time that weakness occurs over the ocean, so the storm turns north before it gets to the United States. Other times the ridge extends westward, and that allows tropical systems to get farther west before they turn north, so they can get steered into the United States or the Gulf of Mexico. Now, early in its life, Ike looked like it might fall into the first category, as it was already heading west-northwest over the open ocean. But then it made a left turn and eventually moved across much of Cuba and into the Gulf on its way to its final landfall in southeast Texas. Now, this struck me as an unusual track, mainly because of how far north Ike got while it was still over the open Atlantic, north of the Tropic of Cancer. I thought it would be interesting to see where previous hurricanes that had passed through that stretch of ocean eventually went. So I drew a circle around that point, 400 miles across, and turned to a great NOAA website that allows you to plot the tracks of storms that pass within a certain distance of a point. And here's what I got. Now, it's messy, I know, because lots of tropical storms and hurricanes have crossed that piece of ocean in the past. But what you want to glean from this mess is that only 4 storms that passed close to where Ike was in the open ocean ever got into the Gulf of Mexico. The one that got the farthest west was Andrew in 1992, which crossed Florida and made a second landfall in Louisiana. So basically, Ike's track is unprecedented in the historical record. Before Ike came along, no tropical storm or hurricane had gotten that far north in the open Atlantic Ocean and went on to make it all the way into the western Gulf of Mexico with a landfall in Texas. Now, here's what the upper air pattern looked like when Ike was at that far northern point over the Atlantic. An area of high pressure in red and orange here was just to its north, blocking its escape from the tropics. Now, here's the situation 3 days later. That ridge had expanded west and even a little bit to the south as Ike moved along, forcing the hurricane to move west-southwest toward Cuba. And even 3 days later, you could still see hints of that ridge of high pressure in the southeastern United States, trying to keep Ike from coming north. With early damage estimates in the 10 to as much as $25 billion range, Ike will easily end up in the top 10 costliest hurricanes in U.S. history. And if the damage ends up near the high end of that range, it'll be number 3, behind only Katrina and Andrew. Fred will be back with the extended forecast next.